What's this episode called? Someone's watching?
Somebody's watching.
The way I wrote someone's watch, which
Someone's
is
watch.
neither
Somebody's
word
watch.
that's the name. Neither, it's somebody's watching, and I was like, yeah, somebody's watch. Someone's watch. Hello, B. Benjamin.
Oh, is this our intro?
Yeah.
Hey, James.
Arnold. Yes.
Do you want to talk about season 1, episode 18? Somebody's watching of Criminal Minds for our podcast, Wheels Up.
I would love to do that.
Oh, a very much more subdued intro than we usually get.
I was trying to think of something like, yeah, somebody is watching. I did watch this episode. But I wasn't funny enough in time.
And that's about all we can say about this episode. I'm not going to lie to you. It's just like a...
Okay,
we did in fact watch this ep.
I have some thoughts. There are some problematic
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
representations.
I have 2 notes on my sticky note for this time, and about 3/4 of the page is taken up by just me saying the lesbian, yikes, in very large font.
You know what it is though? There are 2 lesbians in this episode.
There are 2 the most rep we've ever had. Oh my god.
It's like the most rep in one episode while simultaneously being like the worst app. The worst representation.
Like, we can, I mean, it's at the very beginning of the episode. We can talk about it, but
yeah. That fucking okay.
There are okay.
Let's get there.
Yeah, why don't you walk me into it here so I can go on my little tangent.
We're in Los Angeles. We're in Los Angeles, California. Gideon and Reid are in town for like a training with the LAPD. They are at an art gallery. This guy named
Peter Dunley.
Parker Dunley. Who went to high school with Reid, and Parker like comes over to Reid and Gideon, and he's like, Spencer, my man, Spencer, and like does like a hug, and Spencer's like, yeah, the super awkward, and then Parker Dunley is like, Reid was the only 12-year-old in our graduating class, and then like 5 times he says, you look exactly the same. You haven't changed. You look the same. Wow, Spencer Reid, the same. And then he like walks away. And Reid is like, this is Special Agent Jason Gideon. And
he does a very formal introduction.
Yeah, I think he's trying to like show off, like, I'm friends with the FBI, I'm in the FBI. But it doesn't come off like that because it's Reid. And then he says that Jason Gideon's a big fan of contemporary art, which like he's a fan of art about birds.
Birds are contemporary, don't you know? Birds are very cutting edge. Just like, in general, the concept of birds, contemporary. So
you know, the scenes I'm thinking about when we see Jason talking about art, they haven't happened yet. But like we learned later, this is not a spoiler, except I guess if you really care about Jason Gideon facts. His like for fun thing to do is to go to the Smithsonian and look at original artworks they have there of all birds. That's like his fun thing to do. Like, I don't think that makes him a fan of contemporary art.
It really doesn't. And nothing in his office screams like contemporary art lover.
No.
Nothing in like his apartment when we see it later screams like I love contemporary art.
He's a train collecting lover of bird art.
He's a bird art guy.
Yeah, and he does like collect model trains. Like we do learn he does collect model trains, which is like such weird. A fucking Jason Gideon. Like why? And we never learn why. We never learn like what it is about trains he likes. We just end up like seeing somebody else ends up like in his apartment, and we see he's got a shit ton of fucking model trains. Just kind of like around.
You know, as you do.
As you do, you know, cool.
As you do.
Yeah. Anyway. Big fan of contemporary art, and then Parker Donnelly's all like, oh my god, I've got to get you to look at some things. Everything's on sale. Like, I can get you a discount. And then Lila walks in. Lila, who is definitely in other things, but every time I see her, I'm like, you're that actress. You know? and she's young and she's beautiful.
It's Amber Heard, right? Is the actress.
Oh,
That's her
that's
name.
who it is.
And every time I saw her, I was like, wait, that's Amber Heard. What are you doing here in Criminal Minds, Amber Heard?
Way too famous to be in Criminal Minds. But also now she is deeply problematic, right?
I think so.
No, she is. She very much is problematic now. Well, it depends on whose side of the divorce case you're on, right?
Oh, I love messy divorces. But yeah, no, it's Amber Heard. That's why you
That's why
you know that you know
she's
her
bi
from somewhere.
in real life.
Love that for her.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you think that you know her from somewhere, because you do.
Because she's actually like a celebrity.
Yeah, she's actually a celebrity.
She walks in and she's like the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, not new to Hollywood, but like still kind of becoming famous Lila Archer. And then she walks in with her friend, who is, I want to describe her. She's somehow, she walks in and then the next cut, she has a glass of wine in her hand. Yeah. She's got like glasses, but they're up not on her head, but like at the top of her forehead. And then she's like the curly, obviously dyed a dark red, bushy hair. She's like goth, but in like a sexual way.
She looks exactly like a 2005 stereotype of lesbians. Looks.
LA lesbians.
Yeah,
like she
exactly.
could 100% be a character at the L Word, you know, yeah. Like one of the ones Shane like dates and ditches. Like 100%. Okay, go. Should I describe our conversation with Gideon, or do you want to do it?
This fucking bitch. I swear to God, this bitch.
It's not her fault. It's the writer.
It's not her fault, but the writing in this conversation is so god awful. She starts talking to Gideon, and it is immediately obvious that she has daddy issues.
She says it. She explicitly says it.
And not even in like the fun spank me daddy kind of issues. In like a go to therapy daddy issues. She literally
like
get help.
So she's like looking at her art, which Gideon is like, no, art's not boring. Like you can look at it and tell all about a person and their obsession and like blah blah blah. It was a very boring piece of art.
It was so boring.
It was so stupid. No wonder nobody bought it. And then Gideon's looking at it though, and he says this thing, and she like looks at him and goes, if I weren't a lesbian, I wrote it down. If I weren't a lesbian, I'd jump your bones. And she's like, I have a thing for middle-aged men who are therapists like my father, and you have piercing eyes. I can see myself reflected in them, and God, I am hot. It's bad.
Go to therapy. Please, dear God, talk to somebody about your problems, girl.
I am not.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I can excuse fun spank me daddy issues. Sure. I can excuse it. Like, sure, have a good time, live your life. But then when you get to like this level, I'm like, get help.
Listen, I am not somebody who will ever say like, don't identify as a lesbian if you're going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to say that. Identify however you want. But this is so clearly a character that is supposed to be that stereotype of like an artist in LA calling herself a lesbian, but is still going to throw herself at men constantly. Like you can tell that like this character like is not a lesbian. This character is using that label for the attention of it, you know, because now like if Gideon were the type of man, he could be like, ooh, this young hot lesbian wants me even though I'm like an older guy, you know, like she's using it as like an extra cherry on top of her willingness to sleep with a man, which is fine, but like I gotta think about the people who wrote this character, the men in the room who wrote this character, you know.
This episode was absolutely written by a man, and you can tell.
Oh, it's just bad thing after bad thing. Yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, okay.
I don't trust men named Ed who write Criminal Minds. There's a few Eds that come through Criminal Minds.
Ed Gein?
No, this is Ed Napier? Napier?
No, that was a joke. Ed Gein's a serial killer. Why do you...
Yeah.
Why do you do this to me? Me specifically? How could you do this to me specifically? Me, the person.
I love being just a brick wall where all comedy goes to die. I love it.
Jesus Christ.
One of us here has to play the straight man, and sometimes, unfortunately, that's me.
Yeah, I'm never gonna play a straight man.
I know.
Okay. Anyway, backing up just a little bit. Reid, there's a cute moment where like the guy's like, "Oh my god, Lila," and he like goes over and Reid looks at Gideon and says, "I don't look 12, do I?" And Gideon says, "No, maybe 14." And I was like, "That's funny, Gideon."
So true, actually, though.
Gideon, this whole scene, Gideon is so clearly out of his depth, like does not want to be there. But you know that Reid was like, "Since we're in town, one of my friends from high school owns an art gallery and he's having a show, and I think it'd be nice to go see him. Do you want to go with me, Gideon?" And Gideon's like, "Yes."
Fuck, I guess. Yeah, literally. He's like, fuck, okay.
Okay. So he goes with Spencer. He so clearly does not want to be there. Does not give two shits about this friend from high school. The girls show up and he just like walks away. And then we get Lila is introduced to Spencer. Spencer is stuttering so much. He's like, Dr. Spencer. I mean, you can call me Spencer. You don't have to call me doctor. And then it does cut to Lila's friend, whose name I couldn't tell you, the lesbian, who is looking at him like, bruh. She is giving him the judgiest, like, what is your problem? Like, look, and I do appreciate that. Same, honestly. But then Lila.
Oh my god, the lesbian's name was Pinky Robertson.
Okay, but that's a good name for a lesbian.
Sorry, I just pulled up the IMDb for this.
Pinky Robertson. Oh, I am changing my legal name again, and I am changing it to Pinky Robertson. That is very funny. No, my wife would divorce me.
Sorry, I got really distracted by Pinky Robertson.
That's a great name. Do you think her real name is Pinky, or do you think that's short for something else? Or just a whole
Absolutely
new nickname?
Short for something boring like Patricia.
Yes, you're so right.
You're welcome.
Okay, Reid and Lila are talking. Reid says they're doing a training service for the LAPD, which is cool. We get another one of these, like, look at them doing real FBI things. That does stop after this season. Gideon, talking with the lesbian, whatever, middle-aged man, dabs a shrink. Gideon says nothing. And then Reid and
Gideon
Lila
just runs away. Can we talk about that?
Well,
he just leaves.
Pinky is like, I have to go, I'll be right back, stay right here. And he's like, And then it cuts to like Reid and Lila talking, and then Gideon just goes, "We gotta go. Reid, we gotta go." And he like turns around and looks back, and Reid's not there, and he goes, "Reid, we're leaving. Now. Reid, now." And Reid's like trying to say goodbye, and he's like, "Reid, now. We are leaving. Now." Like, I laughed. That was peak Gideon comedy. Gideon saying, "No, we're done, bye."
But also, Gideon's homophobic, right? Like, that's just something that must be proven, right? He's just running away from every queer person he meets, right? Okay.
Like, the discomfort he has when Reid is like, "Let's go meet a friend, Parker, from high school." And then, like, a guy walks over, and Gideon's just like, nothing, no words at all to this man.
And just...
No, I do think Gideon's a little homophobic, unfortunately.
Not even like a little, like a lot. Like a lot of homophobic. I'm sorry. It takes a lot of steps to just get to the point where you're just comfortable running away from queer people.
He never likes Emily. He never warms up to her.
And I don't know as though he warms up to Elle either.
He and Elle have a couple of conversations, but he does look very uncomfortable the entire time. Yeah. And him and Penelope? He tolerates Reid. because all of Reid's love interests until he leaves are women for the most part. So I feel like he's like, this kid's
If I
like,
just ignore it, it'll go
right,
away.
this kid's gay, but he's hiding it, so that's fine. You know?
Bisexual king Spencer Reid. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A special king. Okay, they have to run away. Um, what else?
What
Oh,
does Gideon think is gonna happen to him if
we
he
have to go
doesn't
now.
run away from a gay person? What does he think's gonna happen?
I just like love the idea that if he stayed there and she came back, he would end up sleeping with her. He's like, if I don't leave right now, I will end up in bed with this woman. Gideon, the like 60-year-old, cannot turn down this 20-year-old with daddy issues. Like, what is the
Like,
what are you afraid of,
stop running
Gideon?
away from people, old man. You're gonna fucking ruin your hip. Don't
Uh,
stop.
and then when
Go back to the nursing home.
and then when
God.
Pinky does show up later at the end of the episode, and Gideon comes in and she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "We need to talk to Parker," and she's like, "No, hello, makes sense. I didn't get a goodbye," and Gideon's just like,
Like,
"No, it's bad. It's bad. It's hilarious and it's awful."
it's so sadly funny in a
Yeah.
way.
Okay, so while Reid and Lila and Pinky and Gideon and Parker are all standing there, the paparazzi starts taking pictures of Lila, and Lila's all like, "Oh my god, this is so embarrassing!" Like the paparazzi taking pictures of me. Okay, um, and then Parker does chase the paparazzi out. That's important. It comes up later. Okay, and I wrote also JJ type, meaning Lila. Reid went, "Oh, pretty blonde. Remind me of pretty blonde at work. I can't have. We'll crush on."
It's so
Yeah. They didn't even try to
awkward.
hide it.
Because she's just JJ's like in 2 scenes this episode.
Yes. They literally were like, we cannot have JJ and Lila in the same room, or else we will have
People
to
will get
acknowledge.
confused.
Yes, one, they will get confused. Two, Reid will have to be like, ah shit, I got a fucking type. and then after all the romantic stuff happens with Lila, Reid then has to go back home and continue to work with JJ, who now is like, oh, I get it.
Oh,
Right?
you just have a type. Yeah.
Oh, I see. You came after me because, oh, I get it. Now I have to live the rest of my life knowing that you do have a crush on me, though. So I appreciate that at least, that they didn't put them in the same room, but it meant that we got absolutely no JJ.
No JJ this
Yeah.
episode.
All right. So we cut to the training with the LAPD. Reid says they do this kind of like cross cutting between two scenes where Reid is talking about like the most important part of profiling or really any investigative technique is victimology. You know, victim comes from the Latin word meaning sacrifice. Um, and Gideon's like, we have to ask why this victim, why now? What did what did the victim do to provoke it? Or did the unsub just see that victim as weak? Like what was going on? And so while that's happening, we see this blonde girl, woman, waiting for her script, and the courier comes to the door, and the woman is like, "Oh, you're gonna give me the script?" And then the courier like, pulls out a gun, and they're wearing like a motorcycle helmet that's like blacked out so you can't see their face at all. And they like come in with a gun and like they're screaming, and then like in another one of these cuts, the fiance comes home and is all like, "Huh, what's going on?" And then he sees her like she's sitting on the couch, gunshot to the head, and he's like, "Natalie, Natalie!" And then the courier's like,
It's on
"I'm still
his
here."
knees. He's like on his
Yeah,
knees in front
yeah.
of her yelling.
Yelling Natalie, and then the courier is like, "I am still here though," and shoots him twice in the chest. Yeah.
It's not a very like climactic murder scene, is it? It's
No,
just sort of like there and happens.
yeah,
I feel like this whole episode just kind of happens.
yeah, yeah. So okay, then the detective Kim, I think his name is gonna drive Reid and Gideon to the airport. There's this cute little scene where they're like, "Oh, you don't have to drive us," and he's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It was nice of you to come out." But then he does get a phone call about what happened, and he tells them like Natalie Ryan just got shot, like it's a celebrity death, like it's kind of a big deal. And he's like, "Hey, would you guys mind taking a look at the crime scene? It's on the way to the airport." And they're like, "Oh yeah, obviously, of course, let's go." So they go. They notice that it's the same gun. Oh, there were three or two other deaths. This is the third. The first was a film producer. The second was another actress, and now Natalie Ryan. Um, so they talk about that it's all been with the same gun, and then they talk about how Natalie Ryan and her fiance were both shot with the same gun, but they were different MOs. And they keep like conspicuously calling the unsub him. He had her sit. He pointed the gun at her. He shot her in the head. Like they keep like. I noticed it a lot. Like maybe it's because I knew the unsub was a woman, but it was very much like they didn't say like the unsub, the killer. It was always like he did this, he did that, he did this.
Yeah, you're right. Like they really most of the times they're better with saying they or they usually
The unsub, the killer, you know.
yeah, they're usually much more
The attacker would have done this, you
gender
know.
neutral. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And this time they specifically I noticed that every time it's a female, um I keep wanting to say perpetrator, like this is fucking person of interest. Um Victim
God,
or
what I wouldn't
perpetrator.
give to what I wouldn't give to be watching Person of Interest instead of this episode of Criminal Minds.
I know.
Oh.
Uh Instead of saying the like when they have female unsubs, they usually are like really heavy on the he, so that like it distracts you. And then when it's a guy unsub, they're just like the unsub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that they think they're slick. They
Yes.
think they're so
I'm on
slick.
to you, Criminal Minds.
I'm on to you. Also, I just have to mention the detective who is it? Detective Kim
Kim, yeah.
that's with them.
Yeah.
So cute.
Oh my god, he's so
So
adorable.
cute.
I have
He
a
comes
note.
back in a later episode. He's just so cute.
Yeah, I do love him.
Listen, I know I'm a lesbian and don't like men, but also he's kind of cute. He's kind of cute, and I do like his face.
If I weren't a lesbian, I'd jump his bones.
He's also from Minnesota, which is a fun thing that I just learned from looking at his
Oh,
IMDb page.
good
Shout
for
out
him.
to a good state.
Shout out to a good state.
Shout out to Minnesota, a state that I love dearly, and a state that does stick with my accent so hard.
I was gonna say, like, shout out to the Midwest.
Shout out to the Midwest. Sorry. I'm sorry,
okay.
I got distracted by how cute this guy was. Continue.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's fine. I can't say it doesn't happen to me. I have a million notes about JJ. There's paparazzi outside, and Detective Kim is like, welcome to LA. So then they mention the gun is a mafia weapon, and there was no sexual components to the crime. And Gideon says, like, serial, and Detective Kim is like, oh, you think we do have a serial killer? And Gideon says, I think we have a series of murders. I don't know if they're serial.
That threw me the fuck off. I was like, why are you making that distinction?
Also, like, this never happens again. Like, wait, you have 3 people killed. All of them are in the movie industry. 2 of them are the same victim type, all shot with the same kind of weapon in the same place. Like,
that's a serial.
No evidence left. Like, that's serial. That's the signature. Also, Elle says later that they don't have a signature. And I was like, we just had a scene where they described why we think these cases are connected because they all have the same signature.
Like some episodes they have to work for it to establish it as like a serial, right?
Yes.
Because like either murder locations are different, the victimology's all over the place, or there's no like consistent signature. This one, it's like right here. And yet they're like, we don't know if this is a serial killer yet, you guys. We don't know. We can't tell. We can't be sure. And then they just like immediately drop it and they're like, yeah, okay, it's probably a serial.
Yeah,
like,
okay. It's enough alike.
What was the point then?
Yeah, like actually I think the episode with the blindfolds was one like that. Where they were like, we gotta call this a pattern. You know, like the victims aren't connected. Like there's none of this, there's none of that, but like there's enough in common, the blindfolds, the thing in the ear, like that's a serial killer. So here, how is it that they have like so many connections and they just decide there's no signature? It was odd. I don't know. Okay, then we cut to the plane. We do have curly hair JJ. I thought this was kind of cute. She's like getting herself a cup of coffee, and Elle is all like scrunched up in a chair eating a sandwich. And I was like, this is cute.
This is a very like slice of life little plane ride that we
Yeah,
have.
it's like the beginning of like the plane as a second home,
Yeah.
But like
They're
getting
finally like
there.
loosening up. They're like, okay, guys, we
Yeah.
can eat on the plane
Yeah.
because we are adults. As long as you clean up after yourselves, you can eat on the
Yeah.
plane.
It like gets to the point where they like are basically like wearing pajamas on the flight home. They're all like Emily's in her like Uggs, sweatpants, big knit sweater. She's got a blanket. Like JJ also has her like big blanket wrap and her like big thick socks, and she's like drinking her little coffee. Like they get to the point where they're like, "This is our bedroom." This
Yeah, they
plane is
get
a
to the point where
communal
they're like, we
bedroom,
have 4 boxes of takeout pizza here.
right?
Let's everybody just like sleep
Yeah,
over, like, let's
yeah,
sleep over this shit out.
yeah. Like it gets to the point where they're like, Reid, you fell asleep in the chair. Why don't you go sleep on the couch? Like they get to that point, but this is just kind of like, hey Al, what if you like ate a sandwich on the plane? Like,
How wild would that be?
ooh.
Whoa.
I mean, we get to the point where they're like drinking Rossi's alcohol on the plane. But here they're like, one of you gets a cup of coffee, one of you gets to eat some bread. Anyway, they're on the plane. They're like, okay, the killer has to know this. It's Derek, L, Hotch, JJ on the plane,
Mhm.
and Reid and Gideon are already there. Penelope's in like one scene at the end of this episode. Okay, the killer knows the schedule. The killer knows how to blend in. I actually wrote down, oh, is JJ going to be more involved? Because she says the media are calling it the biggest celebrity murder since Sharon Tate. Everyone is going to be watching us. And I wrote that down and I was like, oh, this is going to be like a JJ episode because it's all about like the media and
Media.
about paparazzi and
And
gossip
somebody's
rags.
watching. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, we're going to get Prima, our first like JJ media liaison. No, she's not in this episode. Ugh. Like, what a waste. Just make his love interest brunette and we'd have this whole problem solved. Lila
But
Archer does not show up again in a single episode. She's never mentioned ever again. Why? Why do we sacrifice JJ, a main character? She's not even a guest star. She's not even a reoccurring role. She's a main cast member. Fuck, I hate Reid for this shit. Why does he always get this shit? Ugh.
I know this is an audio medium, so you can't see what Jay just did, but they were just sort of like flapping their arms like an indignant bird.
I'm
Like a really pissed
overstimulated.
off bird.
I have a lot of feelings and they don't know how to get them out of my body.
So true.
Anyway,
Tell me what happens next.
I will tell you what happens next. Okay, I
Thank
will
you.
say though, you're welcome. It's very cute. They're in the detective's office, and Elle is like in a chair, leg like all curled up in her chair. Reid is like he's standing, but one of his legs is like bent to be on top of a filing cabinet, and he's like all like crunched up because he's just such a long, awkward boy.
I feel like when you were in school and you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing in like an empty classroom and somebody was like, shit, somebody's coming, act natural. And then Reid's just like, yes, this is natural.
I'm natural.
Chill and fine. Guys, don't worry about it, I'm so natural.
Yeah, that's Reid at all times.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah, Gideon refused to sit, and then Hotch and Derek were just like sitting in chairs like regular people.
So true.
So
the
true.
2 regular dudes.
Yeah, Hotch and Derek are like the only regular dudes in this show, and Hotch it's a fine line for Hotch. In season 1, Hotch is a regular dude. Okay. They say there's no evidence, there's no DNA, no sign of psychosexual release, and no signature. And I wrote like, it's the same gun, they're shot the same way, they're all in the same community, they were all stalked, there was no evidence at all. Those are, I think, signatures. Anyway, then we learn about the 4 types of assassins.
Yeah.
I was like, sorry, why are they assassins? Because of the no evidence? So we've decided it's an assassin.
They're assassinated? It's weird.
They're not even shot execution style. Execution style is on their knees, gun shot in the back of the head. So it's not even execution. It's like what? And then they describe them. Let me describe you these 4 types of assassins. Okay, 1, political assassin, John Wilkes Booth is the example.
Okay, yeah, huh?
2 is egocentric. They want to make a name for themselves.
So true.
So true. 3 is a psychopath, typically messy. And 4, they have a major mental disorder and are delusional. The types 2 through 4 are just every type of killer we see on Criminal Minds, but they never mention them as types of assassins again.
Do we ever get like a
No,
Hitman episode?
I think we do. I'm not going to say no to that. It's 15 seasons. But I can't think of any off the top of my head. But we get plenty of psychopath, messy killers. We've had plenty. We've gotten the egocentric one. Um, like think of the bioweapon one guy who like I want
Yeah.
them the company to know what they did to me. And then we've gotten major mental disorders, like the cannibal one and the angel boy singing. Like I just don't understand why this time they're assassins.
I don't know.
I think they just like to be like, yeah, we read a book.
We read a lot of
Yeah.
psychology textbooks for this show.
Yeah,
We like to flex that knowledge sometimes.
Like we also got a listicle with the revenge killer with that bioweapon guy. They were like, he's either gonna do it because he's like a kid or because he's got a vendetta or like a political message.
They love their listicles early
They
season,
do.
huh?
Yeah. I will say though that they don't do the thing where everybody gets one. Reid says the first 2 and then Hosh just takes over. Hosh is like, and the third type. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they kind of stop doing listicles after this season, don't they? They're like, we don't need you guys to know all of the 4 types of assassins.
I mean, there are like sometimes there are, but it's more like, well, what would make somebody break like that? And they would be like, oh, it could be a divorce, it could be a death, it could be like a job loss. Like they do stuff like that, but they don't get like, there. This is an assassin. Here are the 4 types of assassins. We don't get so much about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They stop bothering to teach us about profiling at a certain point, and that's when this show actually gets good.
Yeah, or like after this, when we like learn about profiling, it's usually from like a side character who has read a lot about profiling, being like, "Look how smart I am, BAU," and the BAU is like, "I will not remember your name when I leave this building." Sorry. Glad you're excited, but I've already forgotten your name. Okay, and they say they need to figure out the delusion, and then they can figure out who the killer is. So then her manager comes in. I didn't look up this actor's name, but he is that guy from House.
Yeah, he's also famous. He's also more famous than Criminal Minds is.
I saw him and I was like, oh, is this like pre your blow up? Because you're very famous now.
Yeah, it's Peter Jacobson.
Yeah.
And this
this was 2006 or so.
Yeah, I think this is pre.
And
this is pre his tenure on House. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was Dr. Chris Taub on House.
Yeah, he's the one who like cheated on his wife, got a divorce. He was really
fuck
shitty.
That guy.
No, he was really shitty in that show, but I mean, it's not a reflection on him.
Yeah.
That character was bad. Anyway, he shows up and he's like, my client, I have a client. Can we go somewhere private? And the detective is like, we're all working on this case. And he's like, okay, well, she got a note. She's here in the lobby. And they all go out to like see the note. Oh, no. Derek grabs Reid. Reid and Derek go. And the note is like, it's a tabloid of the story of Natalie being killed, and written on it is "You owe me." And everyone's like, "Whoa!" And they all like pass it around.
They're like high schoolers with gossip at lunchtime. They're like, "Oh, did you see? Did you see this? Hey, did you see this?
Hey, make sure, detective, did you see it?" Like, yeah. So Reid and Derek go over, and it's Lila, and Reid goes, "Lila," and she like smiles at him. And then it cuts to them all in the bullpen doing the interview. And then they ask about Natalie Ryan, and Lila's like, we weren't friends, we were just like casual acquaintances in the same business. And then they mentioned the producer, and she's like, yeah, I met with him about a part, but I didn't get it. Actually, oh no, they did cast Natalie Ryan. And then Derek is like, you owe me. Yeah, that makes sense. And they're all like, yeah.
I feel so sorry for Lila Archer this episode. Everybody just says shit around her, and she's like, okay, but what does that mean? Hey guys, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. And then somebody asks, like, have you noticed anyone watching you or following you? And they're like, this is Hollywood. And she just starts like listing the people that are around her all day. And it's like my agent, my producer, my manager, makeup artist, set artists, like the camera crew, other actor, like just starts like naming people. And then they're like, has anything odd happened? And this is where she says, I get flowers on the 7th of every month, red anemones. And we never find out what the significance of the 7th is. Maybe it's the weekend that they spent together was like the 7th.
Yeah, I have to imagine that was it.
They don't mention it though.
They don't mention it at all.
No. So then the BAU is like, oh, it could be because of you. They want to kill because of you. And she's like, I have to go. And she just
She's like,
leaves.
okay, but can I just go back to my job now, please?
Yeah. And then Reid like follows her outside and it just starts like talking to her, like, well, we think it's this and that, like whatever. And she's like, okay, but like what happens? And they say, oh, he says like, oh yeah, the killer, is gonna end up either killing themselves or trying to kill you. And then he just like goes to commercial. And I just wanted to be like, Reid, buddy.
How have they not enrolled Reid in like bedside manner classes? How have they not walked him through what is acceptable and what is not?
They cannot acknowledge that he has a disorder of any kind, and therefore
True.
they cannot address it.
And so
If
they
acknowledge he needs help, they have to acknowledge that he's autistic. And if they acknowledge he's autistic, then they have to make him good autistic representation. But if we just say, haha, he's so quirky and girls like that, then we don't have to acknowledge it. And we don't have to make him good representation. I hate the writers of this show so much.
So true.
Pick a fucking side and stick with it, buddies.
Exactly.
Just very angry about all of that in general.
As we always are.
As we always are. Okay, and then, I wrote down Broken Mirror because this really reminded me of the Broken Mirror episode. They start talking about it's a compound profile. This person is an erotomantic, meaning they're a stalker who thinks that the other person, normally of a higher standard, is in love with them. And if they feel betrayed, then they will act out with violence against the object of their affection. So I was like, so Broken Mirror.
Yeah.
They did the same thing in the same season and expected us not to realize it because that was episode like 3 and not a celebrity.
18.
And this is episode 18 and now it's a celebrity. Like, but it's the same. I'm so sorry, but it is the same thing. And I also wrote no JJ question mark. We got about this far into the episode where I went, hey, wait. Where'd she go?
Wait, she's not here anymore.
Yeah. And then Hotch says, like, erotomantics can be either male or female, but it's probably a single man with a lot of time to be able to stalk. Yeah. And then it cuts to them on set. And the producer is like asking Lila to stop working. He's like, you can come stay with me. I'll take care of you. Blah, blah, blah. Clearly supposed to be a red herring, right? You're supposed to be.
Because her manager is like he's like a good guy.
Yeah, he like cares a lot about her.
Yeah, he like actually gives a shit.
And God forbid.
And God forbid a man care about a woman and not want to either fuck her or kill her. He genuinely just does seem like a nice guy who cares.
Yeah.
And so Criminal Minds is like, guys, isn't this weird? Hey guys, isn't this weird how he gives a shit? So weird.
Isn't it so weird how he like wants to take care of his client?
Isn't it so weird? I was actually really upset when the manager died. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was genuinely upset.
And then you find out that like he knew that a photographer had nude photos of her and he was like paying to keep them quiet. Like he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
I was extra like he was like a dad figure to her.
Exactly. And that's what they wanted. They like kind of got that across after he died.
Once he was
dead. Like, oh man.
So then Mags comes over to Lila in her chair and is like, here's the updated script, whatever. Oh, and you have this note taped to the door of your trailer. Okay, we need to make a quick pit stop. Catherine Winnick, who plays
so hot.
So hot, yes.
So hot.
Yes. 2, she plays Lagatha in Vikings, the television show.
Yeah, she's been on that show for like ever, hasn't she? That show's been on for like 7 years now.
Yes. My wife has recently begun watching that show, and
Mm-hmm.
she is fully obsessed with Agatha. And
So true, Chase White.
so true. And I was sitting there and I was watching the episode and I went, God dang it, she looks familiar. I was like, clearly, if I'm like, she's familiar, then she was probably on an episode of Criminal Minds or Person of Interest, one of the two. And so I
Yeah.
open up IMDb and I'm like, oh, she's this character. And I just kind of was like, listen, bestie, I was ready to love Lagatha, but now I don't know. This character's kind of.
It's okay. It's okay
She's.
because she's hot. It's
I was just
okay.
gonna say she is beautiful though. I wish they had. Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
We're not like objectifying women, by the way. I just want to like make that clear.
No.
We're not being gross about it. It's just fun to be like, wow, she's hot because
Yeah.
she's hot. So
We're
I'm
allowed
just
to
gonna say
experience
that.
sexual attraction to women, and it's not creepy.
So true. I'm also allowed to say that men are cute, like this detective boy who I can't get over.
Like
I
this
love
little
him.
boy detective.
He's a whole ass grown man, but he's also my baby boy.
I mean, I call Aaron Hutchner my floppy haired boy 24/7. Yeah. Okay.
So
All right.
true of us.
So they're in the trailer. I like watched this episode and I was like, did they just like use the Criminal Minds like use one of their studios to
They
film?
absolutely shot most of this on a lot
Yeah.
because they were
Did they
in
just did they just like pick someone's trailer? Whoever had the neatest trailer, they were like, this one will be Lila's. Like
literally, and it's also so weird because like the
because I've seen behind the scenes of the Criminal Minds set, and when Lila's like in her chair, I'm like looking at the walls, and I'm like,
oh yeah, it's
this
absolutely
is.
just a sound
I
stage.
was like, this is Criminal Minds' actual real life set. They just
Yeah,
zoomed out
they
a little
just
bit.
literally they just zoomed out and threw some fucking beach props behind him, and they were like, "Perfect, we call it a day." Like I was probably left over from some
Yeah.
fucking music video that shot there or something, and they were just like, "Hey, can you guys just like leave that up over the weekend? Actually, we really need that. Thank you."
Yeah.
And like,
Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, they say the stalker sounds like someone she knows. We should take her to an undisclosed location, blah blah. And she's like, I'm right here. And she keeps being like, I'm not gonna hide. I'm not gonna like do it. Like I've only got one more scene left. And so they say, like, okay, well, the set's only essential personnel now. And then Mag sticks her head in and is like, Lila, they're ready for you on set. And Lila goes. And Reid like so clearly has a crush.
I have to say, I did think they did very well of like letting Meg sort of like be there, but also like fade into the background. Because if you're just like a PA, you're just
Right.
running around doing a lot of shit for a lot of people. And I like that they were just like, yeah, on a film set, you don't know everybody at
Yeah.
every point in time.
I'm pretty sure I like knew it was her right away though when I watched this the first time, because it's like the courier shows up with one of those like orange envelopes,
Envelopes. Yeah.
and then Max walks up with the orange envelope and is like, "Here's that script," and I was just like, "Oh, it's you. It's you though."
I had
Okay,
totally forgotten the twist of this episode until they got to
to
like
it.
until they got to it, and I was like, wait, hold up, I feel like I should have remembered this more, but I didn't.
Yeah, I did. I do remember it a lot because it's another like, oh, wonderful, our second lesbian character of the show.
I love it.
Love it for us. Okay, Reid has an obvious crush. They realize the manager may be targeted because um the note that Lila got was, I have always been so good to you, why would you go to the police? And that's how they realize it's someone she knows, like, I've always been so good to you. And then they do some like, I have always, the verb tense, blah blah, but they don't explain like the context. Like if someone says I've always been so good to you, it's not like the verb tense tells me. It's like, oh, they're saying they've known you for a while, you know.
Yeah.
It was like they explained it without actually explaining anything. It was odd. I don't know. I didn't like the way they like did that. Gotta seem smart.
Gotta seem smart.
Yeah. And then so they realize they're like, okay, now who is this person gonna think is in the way? It's going to be the producer who took her to the police. Oh, I'm sorry, the manager who took her to the police. The
Yeah.
thing that gets me though is like, obviously he does show up dead. But here's the thing, right? Like Gideon leaves the set, and by the time he gets to the manager's office, he has been shot. Mags showed up and said, "You're on need to be on set. You're needed on set." Like, so the manager leaves. Mags gives Lila the note.
Mm-hmm.
Then Gideon goes to the manager. The manager's already dead,
I
but
feel
they're
like
all
there
still
had to
on
have been
set.
more time in between there. I feel like
Like,
there had to have been more time, right? Like they
but
stopped for dinner or
but
gas or
Mags has a no, because Lila and Reid are still on set when they get the news.
yeah.
So like, did Mags just like, Lila, you're needed on set, and then just like ditched work? Like, she's working, she's on set. That was the thing. I was like, they literally made it impossible for her to have killed this man.
And
Because
also, like,
even if she had said like, you're needed on set and left right then, Gideon left like 2 minutes behind her.
well, motorcycle versus car in LA traffic is there. You can shave a lot of time there.
Yes, so yeah, but like, it
The
just isn't.
other, the other thing, I mean, number one, she had home field advantage of knowing how to
LA.
get to the manager's office and knowing LA better than Gideon and Elle did.
Sure.
The other thing, I mean, like, yeah,
But like,
it
she has a
felt to me
job
like
on
there was
set.
more time. Yeah, but like, you do obviously, like, you do have shit to do on set, but you can also just tell somebody, hey, I'm running an errand for this other producer, and they'd be like, okay, sure, whatever.
Oh, I guess because she's like a PA.
You run around
She
doing a
has,
lot of shit that's
I
not
mean,
necessarily always on set.
that's true, because we do see her as a courier with the script.
Yeah,
So
so
she
I feel
literally could
like,
have been like, I have to go drop a script off.
yeah, because
Okay.
you can always be like, hey, I'm running an errand for this producer, and somebody will be like, yeah, sure, go. Enjoy your time.
Right.
Or like,
That
just
makes sense.
if somebody asks or calls and asks where you are, you're just like, oh yeah, I'm on an errand for this other person. Because
Right.
like if it's down to essential personnel, there's not a lot of people there, so like
True.
you can kind of sneak out easier and just be like, oh yeah, so and so called and told me to do this thing, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So then Reid's on set. He apologizes to Lila for being insensitive. And she does a little like, well, you were just doing your job, right? And he's like, I mean, yeah. And she's like, okay, then there's nothing to apologize for. Like, clearly she wants him to be like, no, I was taking care of you. Like, some like,
Yeah.
and he obviously does not pick up on what she's putting down. Oh, but then he like drinks his Diet Coke, and she like drinks the coffee and is like, this is so bad. She's like, you don't mind if we share, right? And just takes his Diet Coke, and he's like, go ahead. And immediately, as soon as he's like, yeah, you can drink out of my bottle, Derek's head just goes, huh? Derek is like, sniff, 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 sniff. Oh, what's that?
Derek's little bullshit sense went off, and he was like, oh, what?
Yeah. And then
There's some
Lila
shit
hands
going
it back. Lila hands it back, and Rita immediately drinks from it. He's like, gotta get the germs, the girl
Fucking
germs.
weirdo.
No, I love it though. It's very cute. And then Derek immediately comes over and goes, "Oh, I don't mind if you share my drink." And Reed's like, "Shut up." And Derek goes, "Go get him, lover," which I did think was funny. It kind of contradicts what we get from Derek later, but I did enjoy that little. But Derek being
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, go get him." That's cute. Okay, L, Hotch, Gideon go to the manager's office. He has been shot in the head.
He's also like, his expression is so funny because he has one of those fucking Bluetooth headsets in his ear, and even his arms are laid out like he was talking with his hands while he got shot.
He died
Which
like,
I think is so funny.
yeah.
He died like he lived, talking with his hands.
God, that should be on my headstone. Yeah, and then they're like, he was a threat to the stalker, not to Lila. And then they're like, JJ's still keeping an eye on the press.
She's out there.
She's doing stuff out there off screen. She's busy off screen. And then I wrote, because of Reed's and Lila's relationship. Okay. Now they're like, forget it. I don't get what she wants. We're taking her off the street. We're denying the stalker access to her. Lila and Reid go to her house. There's a marked car outside. Um, they find the nude pictures in the office. Michael had nude pictures of Lila, and they find out that her manager was paying to keep them quiet, probably. So then they're like, well, let's go talk to the paparazzi. So Derek and Detective Kim go to talk to the photographer. They go to his studio. He's not there. They burst in with guns. And they find just like a bunch of pictures of Lila everywhere. And then they find her call sheet, which is, as Detective Kim so nicely explains it, the schedule of when actors need to be on set.
Yeah. I love that they had to have a moment of like, this is what a call sheet is.
Yeah, it did make me laugh. So they're like, it's got to be this guy. Uh, and then it cuts to Spencer and Lila at her house. She's clearly not worried. She's like, yes, I've got this skinny boy in my house. Magic's gonna happen tonight.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to give her like tips, like, oh, you should cut those butches. Oh, you should get a guard dog. Like, change your phone number. Um, and then he's like looking at the like collage on her wall, and she's like, what? How does this one make you feel? And he's like, I don't know, but I'm feeling something. Uh, cute boy. And then she's like, I like it because it's like life, obscure, difficult.
And I'm like, girl, you're a pretty blonde woman in Hollywood.
Oh,
It's not that difficult,
she
hon.
went to Juilliard. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your life is so.
So difficult.
I don't know anything about her upbringing. I don't want to be too rude, but also, her and
But
Spencer,
also,
comparatively, she is a
yeah.
woman in a sexually objectified city, but like Spencer isn't exactly living the high life. I don't know. Okay, that's as far as my analysis is gonna go for there. Um, yeah, they see the photographer, so many Lila photos, etc. As they're leaving, the courier we've been seeing shoots at Derek and Detective Kim and hits the detective in the shoulder. Um,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. him. No, he's fine. Uh,
Yeah, he's good.
yeah, and then it cuts. They call an ambulance, and then it cuts to JJ and Gideon with Derek by the ambulance. And I wrote JJ, and she just says, "I'm gonna have to keep the press at bay. This is gonna like be big news." She just leaves, and I was like, "Cool. Bye, JJ. I'll miss you." Um,
Bye.
yeah, and then the detective, like, they're like, "He'll be fine. Like, he got shot in the shoulder. He'll be okay." And then the detective like flashes Derek a peace sign.
It's like later.
He's literally like in the ambulance, and he just like puts up a peace sign. I was like, I do love this man though.
That's some cute boy shit right there.
That is some cute boy shit.
That's some cute boy shit.
Yeah. Okay. Uh Reid is looking at that fucking collage again. Lila shows up in her robe and she's like, I'm going for a swim. And she takes her robe off and he's like in a bikini. She's like in a bikini and Reid's all like,
Um,
And he's like, no, what are you doing? He's like, someone is trying to kill you. Like, can you stay in your house? And she's like, 5 minutes, please. And then we do see that the photographer is there taking pictures. And then she pulls Reid into the pool. Oh, no. She's like, get in the pool, Reid. Come on. I wrote, she's so dumb.
she is so dumb.
And then he's like, no. And then she pulls him in and he's like still wearing his gun. And then he actually sounds angry for a moment. There's a moment where he's like, and I'm wearing my gun. Great. Now my gun is wet. And he
Also,
like takes it off.
where's his phone? Probably in his pocket.
That does not come up. He does use his phone later. But you're so right.
Like,
Yes, you're so right. That. And I was like, good on you, Reid. You should be mad here. Like, she is being terrible. But then they make out in the pool. Gross. He won't stop talking, I wrote. And Lila's like, don't worry. Like, there's a cop car at front and coyotes in the back. Like, we're fine. And then he starts being, Lila, I do have to tell you something. I should have already told you, but I got to tell you. And I was like, is Spencer going to be like, I'm a virgin?
no, he's just gonna ruin the mood in an entirely wild way.
We do know in canon, Reid has slept with at least one person. Because we get a moment a few seasons in where he's like, I've had sex with someone. And he says it just like that. Which really makes it sound like, someone in college was like, all right, come here. And then never again. Um, anyway, it's now he doesn't tell her that he's a virgin. He says that Michael, her manager, is dead. And he's like, sorry, I didn't tell you sooner, but like I had to tell you before we went any further. And then she gets really mad that he didn't tell her sooner, which I was like, this is kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Because like if he had told her sooner, then um she might have been more uncooperative or been more like angry or something, you know. Um
But also,
but I also think she would have been more likely to take it seriously because after this she begins to
yeah,
take it very seriously.
exactly. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, if
Yeah.
she's being flirty and funny and like not taking it seriously, I think a good way to like
Yeah. It's like
get her
no.
into the like zone
Yeah.
is like, no, your manager died. Also, she has a fucking right to know.
Yeah.
He's obviously like a father figure to her.
Yeah, and literally Spencer is like, "Oh, I can't tell her, she's going to be devastated." Like, "Hey, Spence, that's not your job though. Like your job
It's
is to
not your
tell
job to
her."
decide
Right.
when somebody can or cannot process the emotional pain of losing
Yes.
a loved one.
Now
It's
I
your
was
job
like,
to tell them and let them do that.
it was I'm like the emotional manipulation. Here we go. And
Yeah,
then
it just was weird.
it's like yes, I want to be like good for him for not like having sex with her before telling her, but at the same time like she would not have been kissing him if she'd known. You know, like
Exactly. And she wouldn't have
it,
been in the pool if she had known.
right, like if he had just been open with her like an adult, she could have been making decisions like an adult. Because right now, all she knows is she's getting weird letters, and a couple of people, maybe related to her, might have died. You know, like there's
Yeah.
nothing like really firmly connecting her to this case. And so she's being a little like, why is everyone taking this so seriously? You know, and if she had been like, oh shit, they killed this person I really cared about, this is 100% like about me, I'm gonna stop being so shitty, which she does immediately afterwards. You
Yeah.
know, it's like this should not be Spencer deciding what she gets to feel, what she's allowed to know, and then when he's mad about it, um, Gideon is like, "I ordered him to not to tell you," which is
Which
not
is again
true.
another one of those fucking Gideon moments where he's like,
I don't like how it's all about Spencer and Spencer's feeling and what Spencer gets to do, and she never gets to have the full clear picture of what's happening. Like she should be allowed to say, "Hey, Spencer, I didn't like how you handled this. You should have told me. I'm a grown ass adult. Just because you have a crush on me doesn't mean you get to withhold information from me." But instead, Spencer never learns not to do that. He just learns that when it happens, women get mad, and then also Gideon will be there to have his back.
and also it feels like the Gideon thing that he did with riding the lightning,
Right,
where
Gideon
he was about to
decides.
tell the son, you know?
Yes.
Like,
It's just like Gideon, let Reid learn from this experience. You know,
don't
like
fucking cover his ass.
yeah, I just didn't like that. And then okay, so speaking of covering his ass, so while they're in the pool or whatever, she's out and he's climbing out of the pool. Derek comes up behind the photographer, and then oh my god, Derek has a gun to the photographer's head, and he says, "Give me a reason."
What the fuck?
I was like, to kill a man?
To just murder a dude
And it's
who's
like,
doing his job? Admittedly, it's a skeevy piece of shit job, but like,
also, like, was it okay? Last episode was the stenographer episode, right?
yes.
So, like, literally last episode, they're like, "Oh man, this actual serial killer had to die. That's so sad." Then this episode, they're like, "I will shoot this man in the head. Give
I'll
me a
just shoot this random guy. Yeah.
They don't even know it's actually him,
And it's not. It's
and
not
it's
actually
not
him. He's a
right.
skeevy piece of shit, but it's not him.
Oh, I was like, y'all, you criminal minds, you cannot flip flop like this. I
But
mean,
they
it
can and they
can,
will.
right?
And they
So
will
then
continue to do so.
Elle like goes around to Spencer and he's like, "Oh, I fell in," and she's like, "Uh-huh." And then the photographer is like super mad about being accused. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, killing people." He's like every celebrity photographer is a stalker. You have to be like to get the photos first. Um, and so Derek like hauls him away, and then Elle is like, "Well, you won't be making money off of this," and then she pulls all the film out of his camera, which one, that's destroying evidence. Two, she's holding the camera with his bare hands, and then she's like, "You're welcome," and like gives Spencer the ruined film.
And also, let me fucking go back to it. I think it's a digital camera.
No, it's a film camera. She rips the film out of his camera. That's why, remember, they were in his developing room. All the pictures on the wall, he has like a developing
I know, but I think
room.
the camera that they use as a prop
was a digital camera?
is a digital camera. I don't know where the film came from.
Oh, it's supposed to be in the show as a film camera, but maybe they use a digital one.
They
probably didn't want to fuck around with the film camera. Anyway, yeah. I was like, Elle, you are literally destroying evidence. If this is the guy, this camera matters so much because he is a stalker who takes pictures of her. And it's literally just to cover Reid's ass.
And yeah, the prop they do use, by the way, 100% a digital camera.
So lots of problems here. I was like, Elle, what the fuck, Elle?
And why are they all just handling it with bare hands? Like,
I don't like that everyone keeps fucking covering for Reid. Like, no, there should have been an episode where they're like, Reid, I get it, you're a lonely kid, but like, not even a kid, you're a lonely 24-year-old. Like,
you're a fucking adult, act like it.
Exactly, you're a federal agent. I'm sorry you're single. I'm sorry you don't go on dates, but this is your goddamn job.
Like, I'm sorry you suck at pretty much everything, but like, get it fucking together, dude.
Like, this would have been a great way to begin a maturity arc for Reid. You know, like, he had his bad date with JJ. Now he's after another blonde who happens to be like a victim. He goes too far. She ends up hurt by the situation emotionally. And then he has to be like, what are we going to do about it? And then even the end of this episode just like perpetuates him being like, ha ha ha, I did a cheeky, uncouth thing, but it's fine. Like, no, this is not okay. Like, what if JJ... What if there was an episode where JJ like slept with the hot brother of a victim? You know that whole episode would be like, excuse me? You know? Like, even her flirting with Will, or Will flirting with her in that episode, the whole time it was like, this is inappropriate, this is bad, stop flirting with me, etc., etc. And that was a detective and an FBI agent. That wasn't an agent and a victim. Like, this should have been an episode where we learned, like, sometimes it can be hard to separate. Like, think about, here's a little spoiler, where Emily wants to adopt that one girl, and Hotch is like, you need to think like an agent. Like, this should have been an episode where someone said, hey, Reid, you can't do this shit. You're an agent. This is your job. She's a victim. Why are you putting more emotional turmoil into the situation? And instead, he gets a free fucking pass, and they literally destroy fucking forensic evidence for him.
And also, he even is like aware of it. He talks about transference while they're kissing.
Oh, he tries to.
He tries to. And like, you're a grown man.
Yeah.
Push somebody back if you need to. Like,
It was, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, Gideon was like, if I stay in this room, I will end up having sex with this young lesbian. Reid
take
is like,
some fucking personal responsibility, you fucking fools.
Yeah, I had a lot of problems with the way he was treated in this episode. And it only
like
continues,
a fucking baby.
And it only continues the way he is baby-fied. Anyway.
And it gets worse from here, gang.
It literally only goes downhill from here. Okay, so Lila's in like her robe or whatever and looking at the mosaic, and Reid comes over. He's like in a hoodie and sweatpants, and he looks cute, but I hate his fucking hair in this season.
It does. It looks so bad.
Lila's like, you can't trust anyone in Hollywood. Like, he was the only guy that I like trust. Like, I haven't been able to trust anyone since I was at Juilliard. And then Reid is like, Juilliard? Wait, didn't you say you used to live on like Houston Street? And she's like, yeah. And then he like starts looking at the mosaic, and it starts like pulling out pieces of things, and you're like, uh-oh, we're gonna get a montage. But instead he's like, no, I am gonna have to cut this into pieces.
Yeah, you were like, oh, so it's not just like
we don't just get like a magic Reid montage. We actually like do have to cut this picture up. So they do. They cut it up, and it has like her whole life. Like, it's like pictures from her childhood. Like, that's my summer home. Oh, you're right.
Summer home.
Her life is so hard.
Her life is so difficult.
Summer home. yeah, it's like pictures, and Parker Dunley has a picture on there, which that to me is like, I get it. We needed some connection to Parker, but like, why would Mags have put a picture like Parker's headshot into this mosaic? You know,
I guess it was the same reason to like throw people off the trail, I guess.
but she like there's nothing connecting. I guess like Parker Dunley could have said Mags gave this to me, which he does later, but like she wants Lila to look at this and think of her. Why would she put some like and it wasn't even a picture of Lila with Parker Dunley. It was like literally like that
Just a
actor's
picture of,
headshot, like that
yeah.
IRL headshot of the actor, you know? Um so then Lila's like, "Oh yeah, Parker Dunley gave me that." And they're like, "Oh, that's Reid's friend." So they go back to the art show. They're packing up and the lesbian is there. Um
The lesbian.
I mean, she is. And she like is the whole thing like no hello. Makes sense. I didn't get a goodbye either. And then she's like, Parker!
She literally, like, they could have done that. They could have just yelled, and they didn't. They waited for her to, like,
She
just
gets to say her
yell.
piece. Which also
And then,
again, lesbian.
lesbian.
He should have shown up and she was like, wow, can't handle a little teasing. And instead she's like genuinely sad she didn't get to have sex with Jason Gideon,
I
the
cannot
old
imagine
man.
looking at Jason Gideon and going, I wish I could have had sex with that man.
Of all the
He's
men
gonna
on the
pull a hit.
team.
He's gonna fucking slip a disc or some shit. Like, you know he would.
Yeah. Yeah. We know that Jason can pull though. He has several dates in the seasons he's here.
Don't talk to me about it. Don't talk to me. Don't
Okay.
talk to me about that.
Parker Dunley's like, okay, yeah, I gave her the collage, but I didn't make it. Fine, like I lied. He wanted like young stars to come into the gallery, so he like someone gave him the collage and he claimed it was his. And then he says it was Mag's. He like went to Juilliard with her, works with Lila now, and said like Mags gave him the art and was like, "Can you give this to Lila and say it was from a secret admirer?" But instead, he said that he gave it to her and he made it. So then it cuts back to they do
Can
a
I
lot.
also just say, Parker, kind of a gay ally. If he did
Oh,
that for
one
her, little bit of
hundred,
a dick, but kind of an ally.
kind of an ally. He's like, hell yeah, get it, get together.
Sure. I am
Sure.
gonna tell her that this is from me though,
Yeah.
just because I am still a man.
I am still a man. I would also like to sleep with Lila Archer. um yeah, so then you find out that Lila like got Mags her job on the show. Oh, there's a lot of like cuts in this episode that just like cut to Reid being like, "Oh, okay," like learning the information that we the audience have just learned. There's just
Yeah,
a lot of those.
they don't do phone calls good this ep. They
It's
really
just
don't.
it's just like weird. Like someone will find out some information, and then it'll cut to Reid being like, "Oh, okay, I'll tell her," and then hanging up the phone, and it's like that's weird. Yeah, so he tells like it's Mag. Like, do you know anyone named Mags Dunley or Mags something? And Lila's like, yeah, we were friends at Chilliard. I got her job on the show. And then Mag calls her on the phone, and Reid's like, she's your stalker. And of course, Lila's like, no, no, but like she doesn't believe it. So she answers it, and Reid calls Penelope and is like, we need an emergency trace. And Penelope's like, okay, and starts typing real fast.
As
But
she
then
does.
yeah, and then we see like we're looking in the mirror, and there's that cool like pink and blue lighting, and
The bisexual lighting's so true.
so true, bestie. And we see the helmet, and Mags is there on the phone looking at some necklace. And you're not quite sure where she is. She's like in a bedroom. You can see it in the mirror. So Max is like, I'm tired. There's so much upset in the world, really. It's exhausting. And you're just like, all right, dramatic queen.
Okay, I
And
guess.
she's like, I miss you very much. I just had to say that. And Lila's like, I'm right here. I see you every day. And Max is like, it's not going to go back to the same as it was. And then she says, remember that weekend in college when your heat broke and you stayed with me? And Lila's like, huh? And Max is like, you remember. I know you remember. And Lila's like, oh, yeah, but like, that was for only that weekend, Mags. And Mags is like, no. I just like, in that instant, my heart just like jumped out for Mags. I was like, imagine being like a closeted, queer woman. I don't want to say lesbians, we don't know. A closeted queer woman in college, in love with your best friend. You spend a weekend together. She sleeps with you, and you're like, holy shit, she does love me. And then, like, nothing ever comes from that. I mean, I would not become a killer, but like
Yeah, still does
that,
do murders.
and then you stay best friends with her for years and years. You know,
Yeah.
that's that's rough. It's hard.
That's kind of fucking rough, honestly. Again, doesn't excuse all the murders,
But it'll fuck you up.
that will fuck you up. And I wish they would have actually dived into that at all, because that would have made the end of this episode much better than it is.
Like, they could have had like, the fact that, like, no, I don't want to say like blame on Lila, but the fact that Lila did not have to say like, I'm sorry for leading you on. I'm sorry for making you think that. Like, it was like Lila did know she was, or Lila did sleep with her,
Yeah.
and then
At least it's implied that way. They never say
right,
the actual words, of
but it's
course.
very implied, and
Very
then
implied.
never mentioned it again. And Lila just assumed that it was a one-time thing for both of them, And like Max says later, like, why did I love you? You don't know anything about me, you know?
Ouch. Yeah.
And we see Lila like out with other friends, not with Max. Until that moment, we do not know that Lila and Max are best friends. Right? There's nothing in the episode that lets us think they are. Like, I think Lila should have had a moment where she went, you're right. I have been ignoring you. And you're right. We
But,
did
like,
have this queer moment.
Max had keys to her house. It's not as though, like, Lila just, like, ignored her either. It's like,
That's
they're
true.
still kind of friends. Max had keys to her house.
But it was like Lila went out to this art show. Why wasn't Max with her if they're best friends?
Yeah.
Lila keeps saying, like, I haven't been able to trust anyone since Juilliard. So why isn't she holding the girl she could trust close?
It's just so...
I mean, it's complicated. It's complicated the way these things are. It's just
Yeah.
like you have
Queer
the opportunity.
emotions are so messy, I get it.
Yeah, it was like you had the opportunity of actually like having a conversation like, hey, we slept together one weekend. Clearly it meant more to you than it did to me. And I'm sorry if I've continued to lead you on. Even if it was just that, even if Lila was like, I didn't know how important that weekend was to you, we should have talked about it. I'm sorry, I didn't realize how important it was. Like, even if there had been even if it had been like a throwaway, just something that put some of the responsibility for that. Like, what Max didn't trick Lila into sleeping with her. Like, Lila stayed over, they fooled around, and then they clearly never talked about it again. Like, this is two sides to a relationship.
Yeah.
Doesn't excuse murder.
Still doesn't excuse murder, but
right. But if they'd had a conversation early on, maybe none of this would happen. Okay, anyway. Yes, Max has keys. She's inside the house.
The call is coming from inside the house or whatever.
Literally,
that fucking
Penelope
line.
says that. Penelope is like, is Lila's address this? And Reid's like, yeah. And Penelope is like, Reid, the call is coming from inside the house.
They literally just took that line exactly.
They literally just said it, and I was like, that's funny. This episode does not earn a funny line like that. So then they go into the bedroom. Oh, I said Spence has a wet gun and shitty hair. That's what I
He
wrote.
does have a wet gun and shitty hair this season. Yeah, you're correct on both counts.
There's a crash. They go into the room. Maggie has the gun. She wants Lila to go with her. And she keeps like calling her stupid and ungrateful. I feel like we needed more of Lila's backstory, because all of Mags's delusion comes from this supposed history together, right? Like, we don't even know Max is her best friend. We don't know they went to Juilliard together, and then Maggie is like, I made you, you're stupid and ungrateful. Like, I would have loved to know how Lila, like, I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
You know, you don't, I mean, we know that Lila got Mags the PA job,
Hmm.
but is it like, did they share a shitty apartment and Lila got to go on auditions all the time while Mags worked a menial job to pay the rent? Like, like, we don't know what their history is at all together, you know? So, like, clearly, like, yeah, you know, Lila's talented and stuff. Like, of course, she's like getting these roles, but we don't, like, Maggie literally could have been like supporting her full time until Lila made it, and now Lila lives in this big house, and Mags is still in that shitty apartment. Like was Lila using the fact that Maggie had a crush on her? You
Yeah, I feel
know,
like we didn't learn anything about anybody else except for Reid this episode.
yeah. Like what if the situation was right? They sleep together this weekend and nothing comes of it. But Lila is like, now I know Max has a crush on me. So they go to Hollywood and they get a shitty apartment together, fresh out of Juilliard. And Max is working all the time while Lila's going to auditions. And Lila keeps being like, oh my God, thank you. Like, it's so nice of you to support me. Like, I'm so happy. We're such good friends, Like, doing all of that straight girl shit to get the queer girl to love her, to keep doing things for her. And then when Lila gets famous, we don't ever see them hanging out or talking ever until
Yeah.
the end. Like, if that's the situation, I am a lot more sympathetic to Mags. Obviously,
Yeah.
no excusing the killing, but
Still no murders, but
right, but you get where she's coming from at least. Like this, it's like
Mhm.
literally like, who is this crazy woman? Like, oh, your best friend got famous and now you're angry at her for not being gay. You know, like there was
It's
so much
so weird.
more to the situation they just didn't give us.
They could This episode could have been so good if they actually gave a shit about the queer undertones that they set up.
Yeah,
This episode could have been so good.
two lesbians,
In the same episode.
and they never meet.
They never meet. The
Like, what
murders
if there
aren't
was like
anything fun and artistic. It's
what if
just
there
like
was like what if there was like this understory of like Mags and Pinky are dating but no, but like this, listen to me, this is real, this
okay,
is not
I'm listening.
the
I'm
thing.
listening.
Okay,
Mhm.
like Mags and Pinky are dating and Mags is doing it to try and make Lila jealous, but when Lila doesn't care at all and instead just starts dating Reid or whatever, Mags can be like, nothing I do is ever gonna get your attention. So let me start killing. Like the only thing more I can do is kill the people for you, Like if there had
Yeah.
been some sort of escalation. Because she's killed, I mean, 3 people, which is a lot, but 3 people very recently. So like what was the trigger?
What were the
Like,
steps before that?
right. Like that's like yeah, they just were like, they'll get it. She's a crazy lesbian. They'll get it. The audience will get it.
You get it.
You know? When like really we could have had some like, and then it was like if Pinky and Mags are dating, then we get to see Mags hanging out with Lila, and we get to watch her be jealous. We never see Mags be jealous of Lila. We never see any of that.
They could have really like gone into what exactly like a trigger event was, and they could have like really gone into this.
And later we get, I won't be too spoilery, but later we get like more complex, I guess, queer unsubs. It's still like my parents were
I think
homophobic and now I'm a murderer. But we get that much at least.
the next episode is also, I believe,
What's the next
a
episode?
queer unsub. It's machismo.
Yeah.
The next episode is similar to this.
Machismo. Hold on,
Yeah, it's 119 machismo.
Yes. Yes. Like, why did they just decide with this one?
They were like, these 2 episodes, they're going to be the queer ones, and one of them we're not going to think about at all. The other one we'll think about a little bit more, but this one we won't think about at all.
Yeah. I just like that a lot. Anyway, now you've heard our rant. Reid is like, you're too late, Maggie. She loves me now. How about that? Um, and Maggie's like getting confused, and Reid's like, yeah, Lila, tell her how we kissed in the pool. And Lila's like, yeah, we did kiss in the pool. And then Mags like flips out and tries to shoot Spencer, and he like tackles her. And then she's like, she is begging to die. She is like, please, I would be so much happier if I were dead. Like,
Yeah.
we don't earn that. this episode doesn't earn that. And I as a queer person,
Mm-hmm.
relating as you've heard us relate to this character,
Mm-hmm.
understand,
I get it.
right?
Yeah.
But I don't think the episode has done any of that work to get us there. Like, if this was actually a story about a queer woman who had fallen in love with her straight best friend, and her straight best friend had done, like, they had slept together once a couple years ago, and now her straight best friend keeps like, haha, you have a crush on me. And it just kind of like pushes and pushes until someone who's already unstable snaps. And
Yeah.
then when she is confronted finally with like, this person is never going to be able to love you back in the way that you want, she begs just to be free of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's earning it. This is not earning it. Max is a non character until the very end, and all of their history together is shoehorned in. Yeah, we went to Juilliard. I got her that job. And now she wants to kill me because we spent a weekend together once a few years ago. Like, it's just like, it's not earned. And because it isn't earned, I'm angry that they just had a queer person snap, target the object of their affection, and then beg for death because it's so hard to be queer.
It's just they don't I think because they spend so much of this episode trying to trick us into thinking that the unsub is a man, they go,
Yes.
oh, he had her kneel down, so on and so forth,
Yes.
like we talked about earlier.
We think it's Michael. We think it's the photographer.
Yeah. They spend so much of this episode focusing on who the unsub isn't, they never glance at who it
Yes.
actually is.
Yes. And Catherine Winnick is an amazing actress. She could have done
Yeah, that last
so
scene, I
well in
was like,
Nuance.
okay, girl, fuck, get it, okay.
Yeah. In Vikings, she plays a queer woman. Her character has a whole relationship with a lesbian. Um, Missed opportunities. What if I just started a new show called Liminal Blinds, and it's just every episode but better?
Every episode of Criminal Minds, but better. Welcome
But
to
better.
Liminal Minds.
Welcome to Liminal Blinds.
Welcome to Liminal Minds.
Liminal Blinds. Subliminal Blinds. Okay. Maggie's begging to die, and then Reid won't. Reid's like, we'll get you some help. That's what he says to her.
Did you also notice how fucking horrified Lila Archer looked in the background of this scene?
Yeah.
She
She literally
actually acted and looked terrified and kind of sad.
It was odd to me because like when Maggie is holding her and is like has the gun to her head, it was like Lila was like, oh wait, you're actually a lesbian. Like, it just was like, I don't know. Like when Lila's like, what are you talking about? Of course I don't really think about that weekend at all. Like the second she finds out that Max does, she's like, oh,
And
that's what you're
then
fixated on?
once the whole they've been tackled or whatever, and once Megs is literally begging Reid to shoot her,
Yeah.
she's up against the back wall with her knees on her chest,
Yeah.
looking genuinely sad and distressed.
She looks like she's yes.
What happened? Where's your brain at, Lila?
It's like she really was like, I've been violated. Like that was like the vibes, the whole like vibe that I got from her. And maybe that's me being a queer person projecting onto a straight woman, rejecting a queer woman, But it was just like all of a sudden she was like deeply uncomfortable with like, oh, my best friend's been gay this whole time. She had keys to my house.
Yeah.
Like she's in my bedroom.
It was just such a weird, there was no emotion, and then there was a lot of emotion there, and I don't know how you got from point A to point B.
And we also don't really learn what she was like sad about. Like in the ending scene, it's literally all just like, oh, will she and Reid be able to make it work? Like, that's your best friend you just found out has been in love with you for years to the point of snapping.
Murder? Yeah.
And begging for death. And Lila Archer does not give two shits.
It's just so...
Yeah, it's real shitty.
What
I
the
like
fuck?
I hated Lila Archer this whole episode. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah,
From her being like, oh, someone's trying to kill me, forget it. To her being like, oh, my best friend's is the killer and also gay. That's ew, she's so close to me. And then being
so
like, oh, well,
gross.
she's dead now, so it's fine. Hey, Lila, you were just talking about how she was the only person you could trust because you hadn't been able to trust anyone from Juilliard. And now, like, she's dead because of all these repressed emotions. And you didn't notice she was struggling. And also, she's been killing people for you. And then she literally begged to death in front of you. And you're just like, okay, but Reid, are we like actually ever going to get to have sex? Or
Am I ever
I was
gonna
just
get
like,
to climb you like a tree or what?
ugh.
Like,
God,
that's all I care about.
I was like, I do hate this woman. Um, yep. So it cuts to the station in the morning. JJ and Derek are like corralling the paparazzi. The agent's like, I got an interview for you to talk about being stalked. You might be able to do 60 minutes. And Lila's all like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to like use this for publicity. And the woman is like, it's a public service about stalking. Like, so many young actresses are stalked. It'll be fine. All around weird. Reid
It's
and
a
Lila.
weird vibe, but like I kind of get what they were trying to do, but I don't like it.
I think it's supposed to be like, oh, the hustle and bustle of Hollywood never sleeps.
Yeah.
Um, but she also doesn't
Don't
seem
worry
like
about
that
healing from your
upset.
trauma. Just go back
Right.
to work. It's fine.
Yeah. It was very odd. And then Reid and Lila are saying goodbye, and they're both like trying to be like, well, if I'm ever in DC and like you're ever in LA, and it's like never gonna happen because the agent keeps being like, come on, Lila, and then Derek and Gideon keep like appearing in the middle, being like, Reid, we gotta go, and just like leaving again, being like,
Gideon really
Reid,
just
time to
wants to
go.
get his ass out of here. Like he walks over to Reid, like from the other car, like 20 feet away, and he's like, "Hey, we need to go."
Hey,
Like,
Reid, we're all waiting. Like,
like calm down, old man.
so
Jesus
funny.
Christ, he's so
Mm-hmm.
upset he's gonna have to miss his daily watching of
Yeah.
Days of Our Lives or something.
Yeah, Lila's like, will I be able to call you? But like, obviously they're too busy to make it. And then he like puts his hand on her shoulder, and she like squeezes his hand between like her shoulder and her cheek and like rubs it all weird. Like, I get it, they can't be like affectionate to the paparazzi, but it was like this weird like.
It
I'm
was
just gonna
weird,
like
like
rub
side
my
hug.
hand. Yeah, like I'm just gonna rub my cheek on your hand like a cat. Like, it was so weird. And then they show the jet from the outside, and then they're back at the office. No inside the jet, just
They're
like
done.
they did fly home together, you know.
They did fly
Okay,
home.
they're at the office late. Reid is looking at a tabloid of Lila, and Derek is like, hello Hollywood, which is cute. Reid is like, I did kiss Lila in the pool though. um and Derek is like, well, you were her hero, like you took down an unsub unarmed without
Without
hurting
firing
them.
a shot.
Yeah, like, hey, that was like a real person that was Lila's best friend. Like, what's worse, Lila having to watch her tormented best friend beg for death, or seeing Reid shoot her? Like, what? Like, anyway, Reid asks like, have you ever like had someone cross that boundary? And Derek's like, me? No. That's There's a line. Like, but then Derek is like, it's fine, like you just messed up, it's okay, no harm, no foul. And then we do get leather jacket Derek.
Ooh, leather jacket Derek
Leather
is
jacket
so
Derek.
good.
It's so good. And then I did like Derek. Reid goes, "Hey Derek, have you ever wanted to be with a woman for more than one night?" And Derek is like, no. Derek is like actually offended. Derek is like, "Are you calling me a dog?" Like, hey dude, what the fuck? And I was
Literally.
like,
Like,
yes,
can you
thank you.
imagine just walking up to your coworker and being like, hey, do you ever feel like being not a whore? And
Yeah,
like,
it was
that's
like
just what
such.
he did.
It
Like,
just
oh
like
my God.
really tells us how Reid views Derek. You know, like, it
Yeah.
really is like Reid is like, and that's Derek. He sleeps with a lot of women and never calls them back. It was like, hey Reid, your coworkers are also people. Like, I know you think you're
Yeah.
like the best person, but like they are also people. And Derek is like, our job, like, it's hard enough to have a relationship in the same city, and with a job like ours, like, it's very, very hard to have a relationship. So I choose to hang out with women, have sex with women, you
keep it more
know.
casual.
I prefer to keep
For
it
everybody
casual.
involved. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that
and it's
everybody involved turns out happier.
right,
Like
and we never see we never see Derek like ever in the whole show. We never see Derek like pretending like, "Oh yeah, we'll sleep together this time and I'll definitely call you." We never see that. And here's a little spoiler for when Jordan shows up, but when Jordan like knows his name and he doesn't know her name, he's genuinely like
oh
I
shit, did I fuck up?
yeah, he's genuinely like, how do I not know her name? Like, why do I not know her name? And you know, Emily teases him like, oh, you sleep with so many people you don't know their names, and he's like, no, like, I know the names of the women that I sleep with, and I don't know who that is, you know. And it turns out he didn't know her, you know. But I just don't like this kind of like the show tries to put this player image on Derek, and I think this is the first time Derek kind of like pushes back against it. Like
Yeah.
Derek is like, I love sex, I love women, but both of us are consenting adults. We both know this is just for one night. There are no expectations, and I would not be surprised to find that Derek has a few girls that he does sleep with multiple times, you know,
Yeah.
and they're aware that it's just hooking up, you know.
Just a casual thing.
Yeah, because he's like, our job makes it very hard to have a relationship, and it's hard to have a relationship no matter what, and especially with this job, you know. And I appreciate that they didn't make him just like, no, I just love the ladies. Like they did give him like heart, you know, because Derek's a good guy. Um, oh, and Derek is like, you will eventually have like he's Reid is like, so you're telling me not to call her, and then Derek does say like, it's a decision you're gonna have to make, but you don't have to make it tonight, which is like, okay. And then Reid throws away the magazine, and then a second later picks it up, and then he like puts it in his bottom drawer, puts files on top of it, shuts the door, and leaves. And that's the episode end. Is like, will he call Lila? The answer is no. She is never mentioned
No.
again. She does never get mentioned ever again. They couldn't afford Amber Heard, probably.
After that, yeah, absolutely not.
They were like, listen, we got her for one episode, and then she blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole episode. Wow,
That's
amazing.
the
Oh,
whole episode.
I had, you know, we only recorded for an hour and a half, which is a long time in like life, but for us, not that
I'm
long.
surprised that, yeah, that was not very long for us. I was looking at the time as we were wrapping up and I'm like, oh my god, did we do the impossible? Did we record in under 2 hours for once?
Wow.
Jay, what do you rank in this episode?
Um, I don't know, like a 3 maybe.
A 3? Okay.
No, like a 2. No, like
Okay.
a 3 is fine. A 3 is fine.
Did they say the episode title in the
Someone's
episode? Somebody's
watching.
watching?
Yeah, I think that like someone's been watching you, which
Alrighty.
isn't exactly, but I think it counts.
I think it counts. I'm gonna give this episode a 4 because it has memorable characters, even if it is a garbage nothing burger. And also, I feel like we've been on a real low recently, so I feel like I need to like kind of try and pump us up. Yeah, the last 3 episodes that we've done are fucking 0, 3, and 3 for you. Those have been your last 3 rankings.
To be fair, the 0 is the tribe. I feel like that earned it.
That earned it, but we have been really low on this season in general.
I was higher in the beginning. I gave a couple like 8s, didn't I, in the beginning?
You gave a couple 8s. You gave one to Natural Born Killer and Derailed, and then Unfinished Business. But then that was it. Those have been your highest ones.
I gave an 8 to Derailed.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good. That episode, for all we talk about it, it's earned that 8.
I know. We mention that episode all the time because that's one of the few episodes that I can remember the title to it. Like,
yeah,
Derailed
that.
Train episode. Yeah, I got it. Like every other episode this season, I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck the title would be. I don't know.
This podcast is making me remember the titles to things, but it doesn't mean I remember what happens in them. We're so close to the end of this season.
I know, we're really close. Does it ever hit you that we are gonna become experts on Criminal Minds more so than we already are?
I was just gonna say, B, do you know how much I know about Criminal Minds?
Here's the thing is, we are, in a weird way, experts on this very bad TV show that we love to hate. Does that ever, hit you? But,
it
wow.
hits me when I'm standing in front of my television taking pictures of fucking police reports to learn what date an episode takes place. I'm like, am I going too far with this? Is this too much? This episode takes place on Valentine's Day and no one's mentioned it. That's weird. That's me.
Sometimes it hits me that it's going to take us 15 years to finish this whole fucking show.
Shh. Don't mention it. Don't talk about it. I do think I'm becoming a better writer because of this podcast. I go to write stories and I'm like, oh wait, I need to do this thing that we've talked about, building character in this way. I should,
make sure that it works backwards and forwards, basically.
Right. Yeah. I'm about to start a new story that I'm like, I know all of the pre-story stuff and I know how it ends in great detail and I know none of the middle, but I'm like, that's all I need.
That's all you need. You just need to know enough to write it backwards and forwards.
I know how they solve it and I know what they know at the beginning. So I can just piecemeal it all together until we meet right in the middle.
Perfect, exactly.
Criminal Minds does not like to do that.
Criminal Minds doesn't always do that.
Yeah.
Next time on Wheels Up, we are going to be watching Season 1, Episode 19, Machismo. Our first non-US episode.
Machismo.
We're in Mexico for this one, gang. And I'm sure we're going to treat it with the absolute respect and honor that it deserves. And I'm sure Criminal Minds is not going to be vaguely very racist. I'm sure it'll be totally fine and chill.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's going to be so good.
I'm sure it'll be perfectly fine.
I'm sure a Hispanic person will not be upset with Criminal Minds' portrayal of Hispanic people.
I'm sure it'll be totally great. We're almost done with Season 1.
Yes.
That's episode 119. We only got 4 episodes left. So
holy shit.
If you have friends who you want to get in on this podcast, now's a great time to do it because we have a whole backlog of episodes to go through and we're almost done with the season. It's going to be so great and so much fun. As always, you can find us on all of the social medias at Wheels Up Pod. That's Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr now. I made that the other day. And if you want, I always forget to mention this, but if you want, you can send us voice messages on Anchor to tell us about corrections or things we fucked up, or if you just have something that you want to make sure that we mention in a future episode, leave it there, because I listen to all of those. They come right to my email inbox, and I jolt out of whatever activity I'm currently doing. If I'm sleeping, I sit straight up like in a horror movie, and I'm like, I have Anchor messages to listen to. That's all for this week. James, give me an ending line.
As Spencer Reid says, I've known you 48 hours. I feel like I've aged 48 years. Me so at Criminal Minds.
This episode aged me in ways I cannot explain.
I watched this show all the way through